So the Soundboks Go is Soundbox's new super portable but still ultra durable and super loud Bluetooth speaker that does a really good job of keeping up with its larger brother, the Soundboks 3. But like I said in the full review, I feel that the Soundboks Go is a very niche speaker that is going to get cross-referenced with a lot of other speakers out there. But today we are going to compare the Soundboks Go to both the JBL Partybox 310 and the Sony XP700. Price-wise, these are very close competitors to the Soundboks Go. Now, both the 310 and XP700 have a retail price of $550. Unfortunately, since I reviewed these speakers, they have gotten price increases. The 310 went up by $50 and the XP700 went up by $100. However, both of these speakers are still more affordable than the Soundboks Go, which has a retail price of $700. And if you want the additional carrying strap, that's going to be an additional $60. Nonetheless, if you want to pick any of these speakers up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch shelf down below. I've made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And if you've been watching me for a while, you know I can be very particular. So I'll only set my name on something that I'm really proud of. Now first, let's talk about the design of these speakers. Now obviously the Go is significantly smaller than these other two speakers, and it's also much lighter, weighing in at 20 pounds. So taking this speaker on the go with you is going to be much easier than these other two speakers. Whereas the XP700 weighs in at 37.2 pounds, and the only way that you can transport this speaker is by carrying it. And then there's the 310, which weighs in at 38.4 pounds, but it has built-in wheels, so you can roll this speaker around. However, if you plan on taking your speaker into the woods or to the beach, then these wheels aren't going to be of much use. And in those circumstances, you might want something smaller like the Soundboks Go. But another major difference between these other two speakers is their durability. Now, both the 310 and XP700 have a mostly plastic body and metal grille on the front. Now, don't get me wrong, both of these speakers are very well built, but their softer plastic bodies love to collect scratches anytime you're transporting either of these two speakers, and you do run the risk of denting their fairly thin metal grills. Whereas the Soundboks Go, that's a whole other story. The Go has a mostly plastic body and front honeycomb grille. However, the plastic on the Go is way denser than the plastic used on these other two speakers, and the Go does a phenomenal job of standing up to constant abuse. The only wear and tear that I have seen on my Go Collect is just some dirt that's found around its extruded rubber bumpers. So if you're looking for a portable Bluetooth speaker and you need something super rugged, then the Go is the obvious choice. And besides just being way more durable than these other two speakers, the Go is rocking a higher IP water and dust resistance certification, coming in at a rating of IP65. Whereas both the 310 and XP700 are both rocking IPX4 ratings. Basically, all of this means is that both of these speakers aren't afraid of a little bit of water, so rain or getting splashed on isn't an issue, but the Go is officially dust resistant as well. Now, even though the Go is technically more resistant than these other two speakers, and clearly this is a main selling point of this speaker, I would still be mindful about not getting any dust or water into the front-firing exhaust ports found around the main woofer of this speaker. And the same goes for the 310 and XP700. But durability and portability aside, I also have to point out that both the Go and 310 have speaker stand mounts on the bottom, whereas the XP700 doesn't, which is a small detail but is very important for some. And as a bonus, the Go does have a built-in loop strap, so you can always attach some things to it if you need to. However, something that these other two speakers have over the Go are their built-in light features. Now, you shouldn't make your speaker purchase decision solely on a light feature, but if you were, obviously, the 310 has a much better and way more dynamic looking light feature than the one found on the XP700. And if you plan on mostly using any of these box speakers mostly at home, at a lower volume, while you entertain guests while on your deck, or if you plan on using them in your man cave on a regular basis, then the light feature on the 310 is really going to come in handy. The light feature on the XP700 is also nice, but it just doesn't compare to the larger, more vibrant, and more dynamic looking light feature found on the 310. But now let's talk about battery life on these speakers. Now, the XP700 has an advertised battery life of 25 hours, whereas the Partybox 310 has an advertised battery life of 18 hours. However, the XP700's advertised battery life of 25 hours is with it playing at 25% volume, with its light feature turned off, but with its mega bass feature turned on, which is good. Whereas the 310's advertised battery life of 18 hours is with it playing at 50% volume, but with its light feature turned off and its bass boost feature turned off as well. Now, for context, if we were talking about, let's say, the Sony XP700 or JBL Boombox 2 or any other smaller Bluetooth speaker, 25% volume is nothing. However, 25% volume on the XP700 is a decent listening volume, and the Partybox 310 playing at 50% volume is like having either the XG500 or JBL Boombox 2 playing around 85% volume. So overall, real-world use, I expect that most people are going to use both of these speakers somewhere between 35 to 50% volume on a regular basis. And if that's the case, then both of these speakers are evenly matched when it comes to battery life, because they're both good for about 18 hours of playback time with their light features turned on and with their bass boost features turned on as well. But for those curious, at max volume, Sony claims that the XP700 is good for 4 hours of playback time with the light feature turned on and with this mega bass feature turned on as well. And the JBL Partybox 310 is along the same lines as well. But then there's the Soundboks Go, which has an advertised battery life of 40 hours, and that's with this speaker playing at 50% volume while in its power EQ. And for context, having the Soundboks Go playing at 50% volume is like having the Partybox 310 playing at 60% volume while it's running off of its internal battery. And if you were to use this speaker at max volume, is good for 10 hours of playback time, which is just simply asking to get a visit from the cops. However, if you were to use this speaker while in its bass plus EQ, which is my preferred EQ because you are going to get more out of it, it's going to get a little louder and you're going to have a little bit more bass. However, you're going to have to sacrifice some battery life because at max volume, it's only good for up to 6 hours of playback time, which is still a lot and is still more than these other two speakers. However, if you do want to extend your battery life, you can always use it while in its indoors EQ. But in its indoors EQ, it's just not going to get as loud and is going to have even less bass from its power EQ. But at max volume is good for up to 14 hours of playback time. But the important thing here is that the Soundboks Go is just on a whole other level when it comes to battery life. These other two speakers just don't compare. And the really cool thing about the Go is that you can easily swap out the batteries. So this is really good because if you have multiple batteries, you can keep the party going if you're off-grid. But this is also going to increase the life of your investment, because if your battery were to completely die on you after a few years, like mine did on the Soundbox 3, I can always just get a new battery. Now, even though I really love the battery life on this speaker and I really love the easy to remove battery on it, one thing that I really don't like about the Soundboks Go is just its port setup. The Soundboks Go only has an audio jack. Now, yeah, you can use it with a wired connection, but this port setup is really lacking, especially when compared to these other two speakers. Whereas with these other two speakers, they both have 2/4 inch inputs, so you can plug in a pair of microphones, and they both have USB-A ports, so you can plug in a USB stick and play music off of it, or you can even charge your own devices if you absolutely must. But then there's the 310, which has 2 ports on it that really makes it stand out. Now, first and more importantly, the 310 has an audio out jack, so you can always daisy chain any other speaker to it and have them play in sync. But the 310 also has a 12-volt DC port on it. Now, you can't actually charge your speaker with this port, but you can power it. So if you want, you can always get a car charger and power your speaker that way. Now, JBL used to include a car charger with their Partybox 300, but not the 310, but the 310 still has the port. And when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, even though the Go is using Bluetooth 5.0, it can only be connected to one device at a time and is still only using SBC. However, latency is not an issue, so if you are going to watch a video with the speaker, your audio and video are going to be in sync. Whereas with these other two speakers, they can both be connected to two devices at the same time. So you and a friend can both be DJ. And when it comes to audio codecs, the 310 has support for both SBC and AAC, whereas the XP700 has support for SBC and AAC, but it also has support for Sony's own LDAC. And before we move on to sound and speaker setups, I do want to point out one pet peeve that I do have about the Soundboks Go. Now, you can adjust the local volume of this speaker from this dial. However, you can't play or pause your music or skip through your music directly from the speaker itself. You either got to do that from your phone or whatever media source you're using. Whereas with these other two speakers, you can control your media playback from their control panels up top. But with all of that out of the way, let's talk about sound. Now, when it comes to speaker setups, the Go has a single front-mount firing 10-inch woofer and a single front-mount firing tweeter horn. But the really important thing to keep in mind here is that the Go has front-mount firing exhaust ports. And this is a big deal because you can't amplify the bass on this speaker by placing it up against a wall like you can with other box speakers out there. Whereas with these other two speakers, they both have dual front-mount firing woofers and exhaust ports that shoot out the back. So with both of these speakers, you can amplify their bass by placing them up against a wall. But then there are the tweeters on these speakers. The 310 has a total of 2 tweeters and they're both found on top. Whereas the XP700 has a total of 4 tweeters, 3 on the front and 1 on the back. However, all of these tweeters aren't always firing. If you've got the speaker laying down like this, it'll use these 2 tweeters, and if you've got it standing upright, it'll use these 2 tweeters and the one on the back. But the really important thing to keep in mind with these speakers is that the Go is a mono speaker, whereas both the 310 and XP700 have a left channel and a right channel, whether you have them laying down flat or standing upright. But now we're going to jump into the sound test. All of these speakers are playing while at 75% volume. The Go is playing while in its power EQ. The 310 is playing while its bass boost is set to deep. And the XP700 is playing with mega bass turned on.
It comes and goes. The life of dreams is moving faster, and no one knows the constant fear of what comes after. We'll never know. It's weighing me down. Got my feet on the ground. Let's hide away from the lights. Let's run away. We're falling hard to find the answer. But this life we live be all that matters. The life of dreams is moving faster, and no one knows the constant fear of what comes after. And we'll never know. Got my feet on the ground. Let's hide away from the lights. Let's run away.
So like you may have just heard, both the Partybox 310 and Sony XP700 sound much more open and have a lot more physicality in their bass than the Soundboks Go. The Soundboks Go really likes to put its tweeter horn to work. It covers the highs and a good amount of the mids as well. So in general, the Soundboks Go does lean towards a brighter sound signature. And since the Go really likes to put its tweeter on overtime, this is a very hard speaker to use while indoors, because at lower volumes, the Go has very little physicality in its bass. Now you can go in and make your own EQ, and I went in and raised the bass and lowered the highs so that the speaker doesn't sound super bright at lower volumes. But even still, that bass is lacking and it can sound very narrow. Whereas with these other two speakers, they sound much more balanced than the Go, and I feel the 310 sounds more balanced and sounds more open than the XP700. But more importantly, at lower volumes, these speakers still have a good amount of physicality in their bass. So you can thoroughly enjoy your music if you're using these speakers indoors. However, when it comes to outdoor use and max volume, that's where the Go finally gets to stretch its legs. At louder volumes, that's where the bass on the Go really gets going. However, the Go just isn't going to have as much bass as these other two speakers even at max volume, because its single woofer just can't move as much air. But at max volume, the Go will sound and get louder than these other two speakers because of its brighter sound signature. Now, both the 310 and XP700 do a good job of keeping up with the Go at max volume while running off of their internal batteries, but the Go still manages to inch out ahead. But with both the 310 and XP700, if you were to use them while they're plugged in, you are going to get a performance boost out of them. They're both going to get a little louder and they're going to have a little bit more bass as well. But the Go still manages to inch out ahead. And unlike these other two speakers, you're not going to get a performance boost out of the Go if you use it while it's plugged in. And also, Soundboks is very adamant that you don't use the Go past 50% volume while it's plugged in and charging your battery. But I did it for science reasons. And while we're here, you also shouldn't use the Go while it's plugged in without a battery. I did this and my Go literally started screeching. The Soundboks Go is a speaker that you should only consider picking up if you plan on mostly using it while outdoors. And by mostly outdoors, I mean like 90% of the time. Because the brighter sound signature on the speaker isn't great for indoor use. But it's great while you're at the beach or camping in the woods. But if you plan on using your speaker while half indoors and half outdoors, and if you don't plan on cranking your volume too much while outdoors, then the Partybox 310 is a better pickup because of its more balanced sound and more physicality in its bass while at lower volumes. However, with the 310, I do have to point out that you can't customize its EQ like you can with these other two speakers. Now you have 3 different bass modes to choose from, but you can't adjust the mids and highs to your liking on this speaker like you can with these other two speakers. Now, just so that there isn't any confusion, you can adjust the bass and treble on this speaker, but these adjustments only apply to any microphone you have connected to this speaker, not your music. But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, the Sony XP700 is the most accommodating speaker here. Now, you can pair it up either to another XP700 or to an XP500, and you can also pair it up to some of Sony's more portable Bluetooth speakers, like either an XG500 or to an XB43, XB33, or to an XB23, and you can pair up to 100 speakers together, which is obviously unnecessary. Now, even though Sony speaker pairing protocol is super accommodating, it's not my favorite. Sometimes pairing your speakers together can be a pain, and sometimes you will hear some skipping while your music is playing. Now, even though Sony speaker pairing protocol is not my favorite, it works when it does. Then there's the Partybox 310, which is a lot more restrictive. Now with the 310, you can only pair it up to another 310 or to a 110 or 710 or to a Partybox Encore, and you can only have up to 2 speakers paired together, which is just not enough. However, JBL speaker pairing protocol is a lot easier to use than Sony's. It's much easier to pair your 2 speakers together, and it's a lot more stable as well. However, one very important thing that I do have to point out is that with JBL's Partyboxes, you can't pair it up to any of JBL's more portable Party Boost speakers. However, the unique thing about the 310 is that it does have that audio out jack, so you can always daisy chain any other speaker to it. So at least there's that. And finally, there's Soundbox's speaker pairing protocol, which is pretty good. Now you can pair either a Soundboks Go up to another Soundboks Go or to a Soundboks 3, and you can have up to 5 speakers wirelessly paired to one another, which I feel is plenty. And the really cool thing about the Soundbox's speaker pairing protocol is that you can assign whatever channel you want to whatever speaker. You don't need to have 2 of the same speakers to have a left and right stereo sound going like you do with these other 2 brands. And in general, Soundbox's speaker pairing protocol is very easy to use. You can do everything from the app. You can choose from any customizable EQ, and skipping is not an issue. So with all that being said, even though the Soundboks Go does have its shortcomings, like a very disappointing port setup, and it isn't the best speaker for indoor use because at lower volumes, it does sound bright and flat, the Soundboks Go is still an amazing road warrior that isn't meant to be used while indoors or at lower volumes. The Soundboks Go is designed to be in the middle of the action and off-grid. Thanks to its super durable construction, the Go can easily take a beating, and thanks to its 99.84 removable watt-hour battery, it's gonna have no problem keeping up with you on a single charge. And if you're going to be off-grid for a while, or if you demand lots of battery life, then you can always swap out the battery and keep the party going. But more importantly, this thing gets loud. It gets dangerously loud. But if you're looking for something that's much more balanced and is going to give you a better bang for your buck, then the Partybox 310 is a great option. From a sound quality standpoint, the speaker sounds the most balanced here and it still gets super loud. But more importantly, since the 310 doesn't have such a bright sound signature, it's still going to have a lot of physicality in its bass at lower volumes. The 310 also has those dual 1/4 inch inputs, so you can plug in a pair of microphones. It's got that audio out jack, and it also has that 12-volt DC port if you want to use it. But when it comes to durability and portability, the 310 just doesn't compare to the Soundboks Go. Yes, the 310 has those built-in wheels, and I love them. But these wheels are useless if you're in nature. Plus, the sheer size of the speaker makes it hard to transport the speaker. And even though the speaker is durable, you still gotta baby it a little bit. And even though the 310 has decent battery life, it can't keep up with you like the Go can, and you can't swap out the battery. Whereas the Go, it can take any physical abuse you throw at it, and the battery can just keep going and going. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.